speak the right words unto these very needing times. Lord, we continue to give back all the praises and glory unto you in the name of the Father and of the Son, Jesus Christ, and of the Spirit. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen. All right. Thank you guys for joining me with that prayer. Quality morning po ulit sa ating lahat. And I would like to officially welcome you to another edition of QF Talk, Power Talk, aptly titled Business Resiliency Amidst Adversity. This is a free webinar and live consultation via Zoom brought to you by Quality Plus Management Consulting Company. We are a team of experts who provide tailored consulting and training services in the field of quality and process improvement. And I am your host. My name is Jamie Katibayan, and I am your friend. So, business resiliency. Resilience is a very hot topic, especially with the ongoing disruption happening in our world due to this COVID-19 pandemic. Of course, we do not want to discount the suffering our people are going through, but we know that our economy is equally hurting too. Tama po ba? These two aspects used to have reciprocity, but right now, what they share, the relationship that they share, is a negative interdependency. As business owners po, and members of big organization or SMEs, where do we put the balance here? That while we want to continue our operations, our people and other resources will be well taken care of. Now join us today as we unravel ways on how to plan and prepare, go through, and move on from this seemingly difficult situation, from this adversity that we are going through. Today, discover more about business resiliency. Now, before we start, let me give you some friendly reminders. While our speaker is sharing the topic, all our microphones will be muted so that everyone will have the best experience from this webinar. But if you have comments or questions, do not shy away from asking our speaker through our chat box. It's a menu that you will find at the lower portion of your screen. So we have a chat box there. If you want to say something, you want to agree, okay, with what our speaker is saying, you can type it in there. Or if you have questions, no po, I'm sorry po that we cannot butt in while the speaker is speaking. So we just have to type down our questions at the chat box. Okay po ba yun? Because after our speaker shares about the topic, we will be given 20 minutes for our question and answer portion. Are you excited? Yes, so do I. And now, without further ado, let me present to you our speaker for today. Ready na po ba kayo? Are you ready? I am so ready. Okay, so he is the president of Quality Plus Management Consulting Company. He is also a management system and business process improvement expert. He is the author of a management system book entitled Building Organizational Excellence through ISO 9000. He successfully handled more than 100 companies towards ISO certification and assisted a number of companies in the process improvement effort. Within his 20 years of experience, which include industrial engineering, business process improvement, total quality management, and various management systems. He is one of the 40 energy management systems experts who successfully completed and pass the examination to become a certified National Energy Management System Consultant. That is for ISO 50001 or the Energy Management System requirements. Now, ladies and gentlemen, our speaker for today, let's give him a big, big round of applause. Our president, Engineer Henry O. PALACA.
Thank you, Jamie. Quality afternoon, everyone. I hope you are all well, healthy, and focused today as we learn about a very important and timely topic. And this is on business resiliency amidst adversity that, of course, the whole world is currently experiencing. I don't know exactly the condition of your business, but what I'm sure of is that all of us are greatly affected by this COVID-19 pandemic to some degree. Maybe some of us are terribly affected while others are just slightly affected. And why is that so? Well, primarily because some organizations are resilient while others are not. Let me start off with a tale of two creatures para hindi naman masyadong seryoso yung ating pag-uusapan ngayon. So this is a story of the cockroach and the dinosaur. So according to science, these two creatures coexisted 160 million years ago. But what happened today? Well, today, you could not anymore find a dinosaur on this planet Earth because, of course, because they are extinct. Well, you can still find their fossils. But the cockroach, on the other hand, despite its tiny size, is still alive and kicking. In fact, it keeps on propagating in our homes and offices. So, a simple lesson that we could learn from this story is this, that you must be resilient in order to survive. Is that correct? Well, of course, you would agree. So in the next 20 minutes, so 20 minutes lang po ang ipugugol natin for our discussion today, I will be presenting to you 4 important points. So first is on understanding risk. So for an individual, a company, or a country to be resilient, you must first recognize the risk that your company or the country is facing. Well, some risks can be easily recognized or even predicted, while others are very difficult to predict. And then the second point that I would like to point out or discuss today is the Black Swan theory or the Black Swan event. So what is that all about? We'll find that out later. Then the third point that I'd like to discuss today is the business resilience and its framework. So what is resiliency and how do we transform our organization into a resilient organization will be discussed. So in line with that topic, I would be discussing a very simple framework on business resiliency. So I hope that after the discussion of this framework, we'll be able to have a clear picture as to how you will make our business resilient. And of course, the final point that I'd like to share today, which is very important also, is on the challenges that the business will be facing when we start building a resilient organization. So let me now begin with the first point. So let's have first a common understanding of the word risk. So according to ISO, or International Organization for Standardization, risk is the effect of uncertainty on objectives. Napaka-iksing definition, ano? So looking at that definition, all of us, whether as individuals or as companies or even as countries, different countries, we always have goals and objectives set. So these goals or these objectives may be written or unwritten. So for example, the goal of everyone to be safe and healthy every day. So such goal is facing a degree of uncertainty, tama po ba? Meaning that not all the time you are healthy, not all the time you are safe. So these are due to many factors. So the goal of living safe, the goal of living healthy every day depends on the current condition, your current health condition. Maybe some of us have higher health risk due to pre-existing condition or even our age. Sabi nga nila, pag senior ka na, mas masakitin ka na daw. And then another factor is our lifestyle. So how is the food that we are eating? Is it healthy food or baka junk foods? Or how do we have enough sleep every day? Baka yung iba puro ML o puro laro-laro na lang, ano? That you are short of sleep. And of course, the external factors, no, such as the viruses that we may be exposed with in the environment. So all of this, no, affect or may increase or may decrease your health risks. So the effect of uncertainty with respect to the goal of being safe or being healthy is what we call risk. Now let's look at another definition. So this is a very specific definition to health risk. This is defined by the World Health Organization. It says here, risk is the probability of an adverse health outcome or a factor that raises its probability. So take note that this definition is quite closely related to the ISO definition. Because when we say uncertainty in ISO definition, it is being measured in terms of probability. While the effect of uncertainty, as defined by ISO, is expressed in terms of the adverse health outcomes. So let's take a closer look at the COVID-19 as a health risk. So why is it a serious risk? Kasi I heard somebody saying, hindi naman talaga seryoso yan eh. But let's say, for most of us, we look at COVID-19 as a serious risk. Why is that so? One reason is because of its fast transmission to people. So maybe one infected person could spread the virus to 3 more persons. In fact, there is what we call super spreader, di ba? In Korea, kaya mabilis yung transmission because of that super spreader. Another reason why we look at COVID-19 as a serious risk is that its detectability. So pag sinabi nating detectability, it is, it's quite difficult to detect if a person is infected with the virus, especially if we're talking of asymptomatic patients, wherein where they don't manifest symptoms of the disease. What else? What makes COVID-19 a serious risk, health risk? Well, of course, because of its mortality rate. Well, as of today, in the Philippines, the mortality rate is 4.4%. So as of kanina, when I checked itong website na to, anyway, if you look at the internet, we already have around 22,992 cases, almost 23,000, while the death is 1,070. So if you calculate the mortality rate, it's 4.4%. So it's quite high. Well, there are so many risks that we are facing aside from COVID-19. So let's now look at this third definition of risk. This is actually the definition by the UNISDR. So according to this definition, risk is the consequence of the interaction between a hazard and the characteristics that make people and place vulnerable and exposed. So a very comprehensive definition of the disaster risk. Don't you know that according to research conducted by the German company, I forgot the name of that research company, Philippines is ranked number 9 in the World Risk Index 2019 among the 180 countries covered by this study. Napakataas ang ating risk rating or risk index. It's 9. Of course, number 1, which is Vanuatu, is the world's highest or the most risky country all over the world. Pero tayo number 9. We are next after Guatemala. So could you guess the safest country to live relative to this disaster risk? Ano kaya sa tingin niyo ang yung nasa 180 na rank? Well, it's actually Qatar. So Qatar is ranked 180. Yung 179 is Malta. So if you are planning to go abroad, siguro you could consider Malta or Qatar because they are the safest countries to live with regard to this disaster risk. By the way, the disaster risk is calculated in terms of the hazard times the exposure time times the vulnerability. The hazard times exposure times the vulnerability. So there are 3 parameters in calculating disaster risk. So your question now may be this: why is the Philippines the 9th most risky country to live in the entire planet Earth? Bakit nga ba napaka risky sa Pilipinas? By the way, no, take note of that in the past years, we ranked number 3. So nag-improve yung ating ranking, no? From 3 in 2017, ngayon in 2019, we are ranked number 9. So medyo nag-improve tayo. But still, and rank 9 is risky pa rin, ano? So one reason why we are ranked number 9 is because the country is located at the Pacific Ring of Fire. So pag sinabi nating Pacific Ring of Fire, we have a series of fault lines in the Earth's crust in this particular area. No? In fact, the 10 most powerful earthquakes since 1900 occurred in the Pacific Ring of Fire. The strongest happened in Chile in 1960 with a magnitude of 9.5, napakalakas. And not only that, no, in the Pacific Ring of Fire, there are actually 452 volcanoes, napakadami. And fortunately, or let's say unfortunately, 22 active volcanoes are located in the Philippines. So in fact, if you go to Camiguin, why I was there, I think 2 years ago, no, with Marvin, isa sa mga participants natin, kasama ko, no, nagpunta sa Camiguin. No? There are actually, according to them, there are actually 7 volcanoes in that small province, no? Small island, where mas marami pa daw yung volcano doon kaysa municipality. So that makes the Philippines is really vulnerable to earthquakes, no? Because of this 22 active volcanoes. Another reason why we rank number 9 no, is the fact that we are typhoon-prone country. Typhoon belt. So the country is hit by an average of 20 typhoons every year. Dami, no? And then 7 of which are destructive. In 2013, after Typhoon Yolanda in November, we had Typhoon Zoraida that followed in December. So you see, we almost ran short of the English alphabet to name the typhoons that visited the country that year. Napakadami. And so with so many typhoons that visited the country every year, we are known as, in fact, we are known as exporter of typhoons. Magaling tayo mag-export ng mga bagyo. But the number one reason, hindi lang pala yun yung mga reasons, no? Bakit we are ranked number 9. In the 2019 index, the number one reason why we rank number 9 is the supply of water in the Philippines. So pag sinabi nating supply, it's either shortage of water or oversupply of water. So saan tayo kaya doon? Is it shortage or oversupply? Well, remember that the Philippines is exposed to extreme weather conditions. No? So we have El Nino for the extreme drought and La Nina for the extreme rain. So you still remember Ondoy and Habagat? So the country at some point have so much water pagka La Nina, but at some times we are experiencing shortage of water, especially during El Nino, no? And that includes potable water. Now, with regard to predictability, there are risks that are easy to predict, like typhoon risk, while the other risks are very difficult to predict, like earthquakes. Ito nakakapag-predict ng earthquake, of course, wala, no? Or even this pandemic, itong COVID-19 pandemic. It was not really, I mean, most of us, if not all of us, were not expecting that this happened to this year. So this unpredictability of some risk brings us to the second point that I'd like to discuss today. And this is what we call the Black Swan theory. So sino dito nakakita na ng Black Swan? Mukhang wala pa yata, no? So Black Swan is a member of a species Cygnus atratus. And this beautiful creature in the aves or bird family remained undocumented in the West, no? Kasi they exist or they inhabit in the West, no? In the western part of the world until the 19th century. So bago lang siya na-document itong Black Swan. No? Now, when we say Black Swan theory or Black Swan event, this is actually a metaphor that describes an event that comes as a surprise. Just like COVID-19, no? It comes to us as a surprise. Or even the Taal volcano eruption in January of this year, it was also parang binulagan na lang tayo, no? Nung Taal volcano eruption. And these are not just coming to us by surprise, but of course they are hard to predict events. And these events have major effect to the society. Well, some events may have positive effect to us, while some events may have negative effect to the society. So this theory, which was actually introduced to us by the Lebanese American scholar and mathematical statistician named Hassim Nicholas Taleb, basically describes randomness and uncertainty. So this means that the black swan theory originates from the assumption in the medieval Europe that the black swan could not exist when in fact, though they are rare to find, but they do exist. Akala kasi ng karamihan noon, no, ano lang yun, no? Parang fiction lang yung black swan, but actually they do exist even today. Now, according to Taleb, unpredictable events are much more common than people think and are actually the norm and not the exception. Do you agree with Taleb that unpredictable events are much more common and are actually the norm and not the exception? So why do most people today mistakenly believe that these unpredictable events are not common? Bakit nga ba inisip natin ito ay mga hindi common na nangyayari? Well, actually, sa totoo, sabi ni Taleb, common naman dapat talaga yan. No? Well, primarily because of insufficient data gathering. Siguro insensitive lang tayo sa nangyayari sa paligid. Or probably we have the data gathered, okay? We have information gathered, but we properly or improperly interpret or misinterpret the data that we have gathered pertaining to that event. So kaya sinabi natin black swan event yan. Now, Taleb also says that the more educated people, the more likely is it that they incorrectly believe these unpredictable events are uncommon. So do you agree na habang nagpakadalubhasa ka, nagkaroon ka ng, you are more prone to incorrect interpretation of the events or the data. No? Not only that, no, Taleb also believes that information overflow in today's society blinded the people from the relevant data of their life, relevant to their lives. So I think that the second point of Taleb justifies the first point, that the higher we pursue education, if we are not so careful, the higher we might commit error in analyzing data. So sometimes a particular situation only requires common sense and gut feel to analyze. Pero some professionals use highly mathematical equations such as summation of x from 1 to infinity or whatever, blah, 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 blah. So sobrang mathematical. And then lastly, according to Taleb, we don't interpret data accurately. And we even create correlations that are not relevant. So ako, sometimes I'm guilty of this point of Taleb, no? That I made or I created correlations that are not really relevant. So the following are good examples of black swan events. Para mas ma-concretize natin yung understanding of the black swan events. These are some of the some events that are considered black swan. So the past wars like the World War I and World War II. So nobody at that time was expecting na magkakaroon ng World War I or World War II. No? These were unpredictable events in the history of human race. Another good example of a black swan event is the COVID-19, as mentioned earlier. So who would have thought that this virus will infect 7.2 million lives worldwide and even killed almost 500,000 people and are still counting? But of course, on the lighter side, example of black swan event is the sudden unexpected rise in the demand of computer. Don't you know that in 1943, the chairman of IBM, the largest electronic hardware manufacturer in the world, predicted and declared that there is a world market demand for maybe 5 computers. Ganun lang yung kanyang predict niya, no? Na darating ang time that there will only be 5 computers that will be needed the whole world. Well, of course, certainly that prediction was proven wrong in the following years. So the question now is, how do we deal with the black swan events? Next slide, please. The first thing to do is, parang wala yata sa slide ko. But anyway, what do we do, or how do we deal with these black swan events? The first thing to do is that you should not deny or ignore the black swan event. So that's one thing that we have to first do. No? do not deny, do not underestimate, do not ignore the Black Swan event, because it can happen to anyone, it could happen to anywhere or even anytime. Another important thing to understand is that a Black Swan event to me might not be a Black Swan event to you. So, pwedeng Black Swan event sa akin, sa hindi. And then finally, ito napakalaga in dealing with Black Swan event or Black Swan and the Black Swan theory. Always plan for the worst case. Let me repeat. Always plan for the worst case. In the case of this current COVID-19 pandemic, did you plan for the worst? Sino ditong nagpaplano for the worst? Or you did not really plan at all? Parang ako yata yun, sa mga hindi nagplano for this COVID-19. Okay, now, having said that, this brings me to my third point. So, which is the business resilience. So, to address the risk, we should make our business resilient. So, to plan for the worst is to make your business resilient. So, what is resilience or business resiliency? So, it's actually the ability of your business enterprise to absorb and adapt to a changing environment that is either sudden or hard to predict, or sometimes gradual and incremental. So, what do you make, or how do you make your business resilient? Paano mo gawing resilient ang organization mo? Well, our recommendation is for your business or organization to adapt and implement the business resilience program based on the framework that is shown on screen. So if you take a closer look at this framework, by the way, this framework is based on ISO 22015, version 2017. This is also known as organizational resilience principles and attributes. So again, if we take a closer look at this framework, there are actually three major dimensions. We have the leadership and strategy on top. So that's the first dimension. And to the left of the framework is the second dimension, which is the culture and behaviors. And then to the right of the framework is the preparedness and managing risk. So if you look at this framework, on top is the leadership, okay? And then the two other dimensions are basically the soft side of the organization, the culture, and then the hard side, which is the system pertaining to the preparedness and managing risk or risk management system. So for every dimension, there are actually three strategies that the company should take to realize the said dimension. So for example, under leadership and strategy dimension, we have the following strategies. So if you look at under the leadership and strategy, we have the shared vision, we have understanding the context, and then the effective leader. So in other words, to actualize leadership, paano maging reality yung leadership and strategy. So a company should make sure that we have a shared vision. Ginagawa ba natin yun sa ating organization? Yung ating bang vision statement is shared to everyone? Okay? Yung gusto natin mangyari na resilient ang organization, do we take time to share that across the organization, or baka sinolo lang ng management? And then of course, the second dimension, which is the culture and behavior dimension, we have three strategies here. The healthy culture, healthy kaya ang kultura ng inyong organization, or the information sharing culture, and of course, the culture of continual improvement. So in other words, the organization should not be stagnating. And then lastly, on the third dimension, which is the preparedness and managing risk, the strategies are resource availability. Naku, medyo mahirap yan, ano? Sometimes nagtitipid ang management to provide the necessary resources to make our business or organization resilient. No? The risk management, and of course, the change management. Now, finally, okay, the heart of the framework, if you look at the framework again, which will enable the organization to remain or sustain resiliency, are the 16 important behaviors that the organization must embrace and live by in order not just to build, but of course to sustain a culture of resiliency. So napakadami nitong 16, no? So hindi ko kayang i-discuss to in few minutes. So let me just select a few of these 16 behaviors for our discussion today. So first is the flexibility culture, or the behavior of flexibility. So when you say flexibility, this is the ability of your company to change, evolve, and adapt in response to changing circumstances. Then comes another culture, which is awareness, meaning your ability to constantly assess, learn, and take in new information on your strengths and weaknesses, and even external factors. Of course, commitment. Pag sinabi natin commitment, that you are willing to give time and energy to something you believe in. Like, let's say, committed ka ba sa asawa mo, or committed ka ba sa girlfriend or boyfriend mo? So if you are committed, then you have to be willing to give time and energy. Tama ba? So same with resilience. So if you're really serious about creating your organization, becoming it more resilient, then you have to be committed. So you must demonstrate your commitment to increase the resilience of your organization. And the next essential behavior is preparedness. Maraming sablay dito, ano? Preparedness. So pag sinabi natin prepared, it means be ready beforehand and to work out the detailed action plan in advance. Ito ditong laging cramming. So if you're always cramming, then you are not prepared. So preparedness means having thought out beforehand any incident or situation that might occur, so that you know the right thing to do at the right moment and are willing to do it. Take note, being prepared is the opposite of being reactive. And the last behavior that I'd like us to look into today is responsiveness. So when you say responsiveness, this is about reacting quickly, appropriately, and positively. So to be responsive means to be alert and to react in a way that is right and for a particular situation. Now, the last point that I'd like to discuss or bring you today is the challenge, or the challenges that you will be facing when you start building a resilient organization. Meaning, hindi ganun kadali. It's not an overnight sensation that you'll be able to create all of this culture and system making your organization resilient. So there are actually 3 challenges that I personally believe you will be able to encounter when you start creating and transforming your organization into a resilient organization. So what are these? By the way, the challenges that I'd like to point out today are based on the 3 dimensions that I've just discussed. So what's the first challenge? Well, of course, a challenge is on the part of the management, no? To create a strong leadership and management commitment. I personally see it as a challenge because I've observed to many entrepreneurs or to many top executives of large companies that they really do not see business resiliency as a top priority. Maybe the top priority is to increase sales revenue, or to create new market, to have business expansion, or even winning competition, mananalo sa competition. Little did they realize that companies are also facing risk not only once in a blue moon, but every day. That if they are not careful, some of the risks that are catastrophic to the company could make the company or would result to shutdown or even business closure. So the only way to combat the risk, particularly those catastrophic or serious risks, is to commit themselves to build a resilient organization. Now, the second challenge has to do with the hard side of the organization, sinabi kong system. No? This is the creation of a management system on organizational resiliency. So marami na tayong ISO standard on resiliency, on business continuity, on emergency preparedness and planning, risk management. I hope that you start applying those different ISO standards on risk management and resiliency. So when we talk of management system, we are talking here of documented policy, documented processes, documented procedures on risk management, business continuity management, including risk prevention, disaster risk preparedness, crisis management, emergency preparedness and response, and even the recovery planning. So there are so many things to establish and document. But for me, what is more challenging is after completing the documentation of the set policies, procedures, and plans. Like, how do you cascade and deploy these policies and procedures to your people in a way that there is a buy-in on the part of the employees, that they don't just understand these documented policies and procedures, but more importantly, understand the value of this documentation to them and even to the company. You know, a few years ago, I was conducting a training in our client in Negros. And then in the middle of my training, there was a strong earthquake. And the training participants all panicked that they all ran and went out of the training room while it was still shaking. And I was the only one person, single person left in the room. And then in the afternoon, when we resumed our training, I asked them if they have the documented procedures on earthquake response. And they said that they have their documentation in place, no? But they just fail to follow the procedure. You see, internalizing the documented system on the part of the people is indeed a challenge. Kasi sometimes, parang, okay, ang dami nating earthquake drill, whatever drills, but then during the actual scenario, during that actual incident, parang nagkalimutan doon sa kung anong mga nakasulat. Well, having said that, the last challenge that a company is facing to make your organization resilient has to do with the behavior and the culture of the company. It's not easy to create a good habit. Those 16 behaviors that I've just mentioned earlier are very difficult to build in the company. Therefore, your documented system, document your system, your policies, your procedures in a way that those 16 behaviors are being captured on those documentation, so that when people start to adhere to those policies, to those procedures, then eventually, ultimately, later, those behavior becomes part of their daily habit. Well, there are so many other challenges that I could not anymore discuss, no, because of limited time. But it's up to you to discover when you start building a resilient organization. So let me end my presentation today with a very short, no, yet very powerful quote. No? I don't even know who wrote this, but he said, "Adversity is opportunity in disguise." Let me repeat. Adversity is opportunity in disguise. So instead of being negative about the adversity that comes our way, just like this COVID-19 pandemic, let us use this adversity as an avenue to transform our organization into a more resilient one. There are always two sides of a coin, ika nga. Well, I think my time is up. So thank you for your time. Thank you for taking time to join our webinar today. And again, quality afternoon. Back to Jamie.
Yes. Thank you, Sir Henry. Um, we had loads of information right now, and we have so many questions here para itanong po sa inyo, but we know that we have just barely scratched the surface because this is a topic that has a lot of issues, a lot of branches that we need to talk about more. However, since we have allotted time for question and answer, sir, ready na po ba kayo para sa mga questions na isinabmit ng ating po mga participants today?
Ready na. Resilient ako eh.
Yes.
Prepared.
Good job. Okay. So, for our first question po. Okay. For our first question, this question came from Prof. Alan Diaz of
Hi, Sir
University. Hi, sir. University of the Philippines, Diliman. So his question is this: what should be given a higher priority? Is it ensuring the health and well-being of our people or opening back of the economy? Yan.
Well, nako, kung ano yun, controversial yan, ano? Depende sa pagtingin mo sa situation, tsaka yung principles mo, no? Pero lagi ko narinig napanood sa TV, no? Among the IATF, laging sinasabi nila, safety and health or well-being of the people first before economy. Kasi sabi nga nila, 'di ba, mas magastos yung magkasakit. So kung ang mga Pilipino ay magkasakit, lalo tayong mabaon sa ating economy. So I agree. I believe the person that health and well-being of employees first comes. In fact, in the business continuity, tinuturo namin to ni Sir Alan, sir, tinuturo natin sa business continuity sa ating mga clients, no, sa ISSI, that sa paggawa ng business continuity plan, laging nanguna doon yung anong gagawin mo sa ating mga empleyado, no? Prior to the disaster, during the disaster, even post-disaster. So talagang, I think, no, the employees should come first before economy.
Okay. I think din, sir, di ba sa business resiliency that you put a balance between continuing with the operation and managing your resources, like the human resources. That is why very important talaga yung business resiliency na ito kasi you want to have a win-win situation. Tama po ba?
Agree.
Oh, okay, sir. So, Sir Alan has a side comment. Sabi niya, most of the business continuity plan or BCP concepts are put to an acid test, like restarting the business quickly after the onset of disruption. Since the very people to implement this are the adversely affected by the pandemic. Ayan. Tama naman si sir. So, we have another question, sir, here. No po? So, this question came from Anonymous.
Anonymous.
Anonymous ay magpakilala.
Sabi
Sabi
na
niya,
lang natin sa pangalan.
wow, gano'n. Ang tanong niya, sir, as we all know, the culture of being reactive, no, tayo daw pong mga Pilipino ay medyo reactive, meaning we do not prepare early for things to come, for the wrong things that might come, no? Being reactive has been carried out to the Filipino generation since the Spanish colonization. We agree that not all Filipinos are reactive, but we can still see at a macro view or macro level that the Philippines has been behind in terms of living and industry advancement. So the question is, what is your best advice to the small businesses, the SMSEs, which are generally negatively affected by this pandemic or natural and human disasters?
Okay, so yung pagiging reactive, particularly the MSMEs, no? Well, actually, one of when I do root cause analysis, gamitan natin ito ng ISO, root cause analysis. Sa root cause analysis kasi, if you really pinpoint the root cause why most MSMEs are reactive, is because of lack of doctors, lack of all this necessary documentation in the operations of the business. Bakit mahalaga sa tingin natin ang documentation na ito? Because in the first place, if you have documented your procedures, your processes, and naka-define, no, specifically doon kung ano yung mga gagawin nyo, no, as part of your preparedness, etc., then mas maiwasan yung pagiging reactive. So I think the MSMEs should start learning how to really to document their processes, their system. So I think that's sa akin basic eh. Hindi kasi pwedeng gawing reason or alibi ng isang malit na kumpanya. Malit pa lang naman kami, hindi ko na kailangan na yung manual na yan. But sa akin kasi, how will you grow as a company if you don't really start standardizing the way you do things? And sa perspective ng preparedness or resiliency, lalo ka talagang hindi magiging prepared if you are not documenting your processes or you're documenting your plan in general.
Okay, so napakahalaga din yung isa sa mga tatlong concepts ng business resiliency, no, sir? And may follow-up question pa rin doon regarding po sa question na yon. The question, sir, is what are the best ways to change the mindset or culture of a certain organization towards proactiveness, sir?
Parang ang hirap na pag-usapan natin changing the culture, no? But anyway, how do we create a culture? Sa akin kasi, I always believe that whatever culture that is prevailing in the organization is at this point in time is actually the culture that the top management wants it to be, paano ko sabihin to? Kung anong kultura ang gusto mangyari ng top management sa company niya. In other words, for me to really change the culture, it starts from the top. Tama ba? So kung reactive ang top management, expect that your people will also be reactive. But if let's say the top management have clearly defined, ito yung mga dapat mong reports, ito dapat yung monitoring na gagawin mo, naka-define lahat yan, then people will begin to be more proactive because these are what are expected from them. So I think the culture should start from the top management. So tell me who your top management are and I'll tell you what kind of culture you have in your organization. Agree ka ba doon, James?
Yes, sir. Kasi di ba, sir, ano talaga if someone who is in authority gives you an example, gagayahin mo talaga siya more than a person na nobody. Tama po
Yes.
ba? Because the person is in authority, has power to change things. I think yun yung minsan na hindi, na hindi na iintindihan or hindi masyado tawag dito, nate-take into heart ng mga people in authority. Tama
Yes.
ba, sir?
Tama,
So,
tama.
kung gusto natin maging mahusay ang ating mga empleyado, una muna tayo. Una muna tayo. Tama, sir? Okay, sir. Correct. So, another question from Sir Charles Tomeldan. Okay? Hi, Charles. Sir Charles. Ito po yung kanyang question. How do we address I think this is very very related sa ating pinagdaraanan ngayon. Pero let's try to kayo na, sir, bahala mag-relate nito sa business resiliency, ha?
Okay. Mukhang mahirap na tanong yan, ha? Kinakabahan nila.
So the question is, how do we address the cases of people, siguro nasa siya, sir, nasa health industry.
Healthcare industry.
Healthcare industry, yes. How do we address the cases of people who are mentally challenged in this crisis? Mentally challenged or mentally affected?
Ulit yun? How do
we address the cases of people who are mentally challenged in this crisis or mentally affected because of the crisis? Kasi siguro nawalan sila ng job, ganun po ba yun? Or hindi nila alam if they're naging anxious and depressed because of hindi nila alam kung mabubuhay pa ba nila yung family nila kasi limited yung options and opportunity for all of us. Siguro ganon.
Oo nga, mahirap nga tanong nga yun, James. Ano? So, parang sabi nga natin, survival of the fittest talaga. No? So kung ano man yung paraan, no, para as to how to address, especially yung mga tao that are mentally challenged or parang siguro sabi nga nila, isa sa mga narinig ko, no, from the advice of the experts with regard to resuming the business operations after ilang months pa of shutdown. Kailangan daw unang gagawin on the first day of work, kailangan daw may, hindi lang, di ba, yung iba nagpapa-test. No? May test sila, may rapid test, no, on that first day. Hindi lang daw dapat yun, pati yung mental capability of the people or mental condition. Kasi pwedeng physically parang okay pa siya, pero yun pala mentally hindi na siya okay, no? And that basically affects the productivity of the people. So I think as a company, kung i-relate natin sa company, I think the only way for the one way for the company to help this mentally challenged, again in the context of that, is to do some siguro, parang support system pa rin, the employers or the top management could do some sort of siguro daily, kung sa planta pa yan, we have what we call the 5-minute ang tawag natin doon, a toolbox meeting, Pero this time siguro yung every start of the day, mga 5 minutes and minutes siguro, just short, parang inspirational talk, coming from the management. That there's always hope. There's always hope after malagpasan din natin itong mga pinapang ito.
Napakalaga talaga yung empathizing with one another.
Yes,
Na yung feelings mo valid, hindi inarte ka lang kung bakit ka depressed or anxious. Kasi pare-pareho tayo ng dinadaanan at sama-sama nating kayang bumangon. Tama po ba? And our company, pumalit man o malaki, ay napakaganda na malaman ng mga empleyado po natin that we are taking care also of their mental health.
Yes.
Tawag dito, their mental health. Tama po ba? So, yun.
Tama.
Thank you, sir. Grabe, ang galing niyo po, sir. So, may another question po si Sir Diaz. Yung parang nagre-report tayo kay
Prof. Pag si Sir Alan, oo nga pag si Prof. Alan ang magtatanong, kinakabahan lagi ako
Prof naman, tapos na po kami. Sabi ni Prof, MSMEs have been preparing their BCP, yung business continuity plan nila, for the big one, earthquake.
Yes, agree.
Diba po, tama naman po talaga. Yung typhoons and floods. But not this pandemic.
Yes.
We were all caught by surprise. So, what do you recommend to correct this and make your resiliency plan more holistic?
Okay, sige. So, magandang tanong yan, And kung babalikan ko yung module on BCP na tinuturo namin sa UPISSI, there's a step there on risk assessment. Kasi if you create a business continuity plan per disaster risk, it's too much of a small company. Kasi parang biro mo, gagawa ka ng business continuity plan for earthquake, for typhoon, for all of this. Sa dami ba naman nun, maubos yung oras mo. So in other words, sa risk assessment kasi, you have to select or evaluate or assess. So alin ang dapat priority mo. Now with regard to pandemic, ako kasi when I teach companies on do risk assessment, pag ang magnitude or severity of the risk is catastrophic, just like this pandemic, automatic priority yun . So when you do risk assessment, automatic yun pag catastrophic and then your company has no current control measures to that particular risk, then automatic dapat gawan mo kaagad ng business continuity plan. So I think yun ang isa sa mga dapat tingnan ng mga MSMEs, na any risk that is considered catastrophic in terms of severity and the company has no current control, wala silang clearly defined policies, procedures, or whatever controls on that particular risk, then they have to consider that as a priority for the BCP preparation.
Okay. Tama, sir. Which is, I think nabuksan mo, sir, yung isa sa mga magagandang issues natin na kailangan din na, I think, as our part of our community service or to people is to set
social
another social responsibility to people
or
is
accountability.
We open another avenue like this another time for discussing risk management, because I think risk management encompasses all. It's the ingredient to every business resiliency plan and business continuity plan. Tama ba, sir?
Yes.
Opo, ayan. So, kinalulungkot po namin na i-inform po kayo pero tapos na po yung time natin for question and answer portion. It is our declaration that you have learned a lot and we are also thanking Sir Henry for giving us his time and
Thank you din,
expertise
Jamie.
para po
Thank
para po
you din.
tayo, yes, ma-enlighten. Pero alam naman natin talagang, na-scratch pa lang natin yung surface ng anong bang kailangan nating malaman tungkol sa business resiliency. And sir, I would just like to read to you ang mga comments nila, ano po,
Mga
sir.
shout-out nila. Ang dami nag-shout-out eh. No?
Aba. Sir Diaz said, great sharing and insights, Prof. Henry. There should be more sessions in the future.
Yes.
Ako parang nag-declare si sir.
We're
Opo.
excited. We're
Parang
excited
gusto natin
for
siyang i-guess. Parang
Sure,
gusto
oo.
na. Pwede si Sir Diaz.
I-guess natin si Sir Alan.
Opo. And according to, Ma'am Faith of Benby Enterprise, thank you, sir. Ma'am Lizelle Prasas, thank you, Sir Henry, and Quality Plus for your invitation. Thank you very much. Thank you din po.
Thank
From
you din.
Sir
Thank you sa mga
Charles.
participants.
Yes, all right. And alam po namin na madami pa po kayong question for Sir Henry. And kung hindi po kung gusto nyo po and you are more comfortable that we answer your question on a one-on-one basis po, our organization is open to do one-on-one online consultation through the available media, Zoom or private messages through FB. And we can attend to some of your questions doon po. Ano po? And just to give you a teaser of what is coming next sa mga susunod na mga weeks, meron po tayo every Wednesday, every
Coffee
Opo, may QFit Talk, Power Talk po tayo.
Okay.
Yes, opo. And ang next po natin is on June 17 next week. It's another business continuity management focusing on business continuity plan. And on June 24 is business agility, focusing on change management. Abangan nyo po yung mga invites namin, at darating po yun sa inyo. Kung interesado pa po kayo sa mga topic na to, please do not hesitate to reach us through our contact details that will be shown in a while. So also, please visit our website. It's www.qplusconsulting.com, our Facebook page and YouTube channel. Like us and be notified for the streaming of our upcoming events and topics. Again, I'm Jamie na nagsasabing ang Pilipino dapat matalino. See you and bye!
Coffee muna tayo. Coffee.
Yes, before we end,
Coffee.
our Cupid Talk Power Talk. Yes, sir. All right. So,
Bye. Bye, everyone.